Bam, bam, bam. Don't forget to like and share. Don't forget to like and share. Don't forget to like and share the video. All right, folks, let's do this. Ching. All right, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. It is the first show of this week because I don't have strep throat. I got tonsillitis. Who the hell gets tonsillitis at 42 years old? I'm telling you, when I was growing up, my dad was like, hey, should we take the kids' tonsils out or not? And I love this guy. I had this pediatrician. He was and he saw me till I was like in the teens because he was just hilarious, but I loved him. But Dr. Goldberg, man, he's got to be retired or dead by now. But I'll tell you what, back then, Italians in my neighborhood, they like only trusted Jewish doctors. I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. I mean, they only were like, they're super smart. They know what they're doing. Anyway, he said, don't take them out. Don't take them out if they don't have to. Man, maybe it helped, but I wish I would have taken them out when I was a kid. Don't forget to like the video if you like them. Share them far and wide. And subscribe, of course. But the best place to follow us is on Locals. peoplespundit.locals.com. Share the video, share the video, share the video. All right. Listen, I'm probably against doctor's orders doing this now, but I can't be gone that long. I just can't be. Plus, we're polling, and it's like, I got to tell you what I see. And I cannot stay quiet that long. Looks like that Trump got the bond reduced yesterday, which he posted. Bang. His stock also, which I knew it. I knew it. I had a feeling. Don't do it if you can't really look and watch. This is my advice to you, even though you're not supposed to give financial advice. As a former financial advisor and a stock guy, I still like to do so Laura likes when I do it. I like to develop trading strategies, option strategies. It's fun for me, right? It's never fun to lose money, but it's fun. And I'll tell you what, if you're not able to watch constantly and do the research, then you should not do it. Wall Street calls individual retail traders dumb money. I took a shot because you don't have the information they have, and you're not supposed to trade on information that's supposed to be illegal, but that's the way the world works. And these people, the Griffins of the world and they're cheaters. And that's it. They're crooks and they're cheaters. So you can't beat them unless you're really, really paying attention and you're focused and you're constantly all eyes on it. So I'm over here polling, I couldn't even do any interviews myself, even ones that were conducted live. I could not do because of my voice. It was just too hard. So I'm basically monitoring, and I had some more time on my hands. So I knew Trump was going to do something because of the timetable, first of all, since we heard about the approval for his digital media company, and then also because of this bond. And I'm thinking he's not going to be able to tolerate bad news. He's going to, he hates it when people talk about his finances. Folks, nobody's that liquid. Nobody is liquid like that, right? I mean, there are maybe one or two people in the freaking world who could write a check for $1 billion or $500 million. It's just people's assets develop their net worth, like Wiki Worth or whatever it is. What the hell is that website, Laura? My kids come up to me and they're like, "Dad, oh my God, you worth this much money?" Because I guess what I do, I'm in that like public profile. And it's not liquid worth. That's not how much you could go to the bank and take out. It's just crazy. Nobody's worth what it says on the paper. Not really. And that's, by the way, why Warren's bill is so bad. That bill, that wealth tax, that is bad. Has anybody gotten a chance to read that? Yeah, just awful. The other big news, of course, is RFK's vice presidential pick, who is a lefty and a donor. So here we have somebody who's talking about populist stuff and somehow pick somebody who gave them money and contributed to them. It just smells bad to me. I don't like it. And then with his daughter-in-law, a former CIA spook, of course, it just all just feels very weird. Something's off. You have Silicon Valley bred with the intelligence complex. I don't see how that defines or represents the candidacy of a left-wing populist whose uncle was probably murdered by the governor. Not probably. It was murdered by the government, and that he is coming back, with retribution. I don't see it. Not with the people surrounding him. That security firm is super shady. Everything just feels really weird to me. And because he did pick someone who's really on the left, I mean, if he wanted to damage Trump, you would have picked somebody closer to the populist right, or at least a figure that some people who are voting for Trump would have liked, like a Tulsi Gabbard. That would have been somebody who would have pulled maybe some of those Trump votes away. If you're a former DeSantis supporter talking about how you're such a purist, you're all very virtuous, more virtuous than us. I get it. We're all bad people and, you're better than us. I don't see how you could sit there and hold that mantle and claim that mantle now. Even, and we don't say people's names like that on the show. Even that one-time prominent Trump social media person who now was DeSantis's person, now is back to MAGA after DeSantis lost, because he's got to survive on social media. Even he pointed out correctly that you cannot anymore make a serious case. Well, I guess I'm going to vote for RFK. He's now picked a devoted leftist. You're so super conservative and virtuous, you're going to give them the Second Amendment? You're going to put it in their hands? I don't think so. Welcome, Lamp. Tell you what, don't know where you've been. You're on locals, aren't you? I think so. Yeah, of course you are. But welcome. I just don't know how you make that case anymore. And I just don't see the issues that they're going to be arguing. That may pull a one-time Bernie voter, but that Bernie voter now, the core of that Bernie 16 voter is a Trump voter now. They've been their views. We know, we've researched them. Their views on certain issues have moderated or moved to the right. They're not going to trust RFK on immigration. They're not going to trust him on trade. I just don't see where he's plucking these people off. Now, they're not going to take the Biden educated voter in southeastern Pennsylvania, in like Montgomery or Delaware, something like that. That's not going to happen. They're not going to do that. But they may take the Biden voter in like Erie County or even Scranton Joe. Maybe a Biden voter in Lackawanna. But at this point, I don't know. Unless he moves to the right. He was, and then he shifted to the left. He went back to the left. So I don't know. Anyway, there's this big hoopla about Biden's resurgence in the polls. He got a bump here and there. And now Michigan is super close. And Biden's doing so much better. There was an Axios article about it claiming, and I'm going to go on Bannon and talk about this. I just couldn't. I tried. I just couldn't do it the other day. I was like, too much. It was supposed to be yesterday morning. But let's talk about the article real quick. And then I'm going to show you something. Okay. Let's add it to the stage. Let's put it up there fully. The Bloomberg Morning Consult swing state poll hints at Biden comeback. All right. Alex Thompson, he does this on a daily basis. You would think that he would know better. First of all, Alex, what are the sampling errors for these polls? Do you know? Do you have any idea how much each survey's sample size is for each state? And more importantly, do you have any idea when those polls were conducted? But let's see. So in all those states, it is Trump +4. In Arizona, it's Trump +5. As you can see, though, the trend. Listen, it is incorrect, folks. And for those of you who have been with me for a while, you know. It is incorrect for them to say margin of error for this. That is a confidence interval, okay? We are now starting to show it on, we used to show what was a sampling error, which is a much more accurate way to call it that for all the reasons we've said a million times that I'm not going to repeat, but it is not a traditional margin of error, and that is not correct to tell people it is. We used to show that on our trends, our trackers, but now we are showing, ever since I think 4, 5, 6 months ago, we moved to showing you the confidence interval, which tells you that the mean support is 48% for Trump in Arizona. The mean support is 43% for Biden in Arizona. That's how you should think about polling. For those of you who are new and watching, I'm going to have to do a little bit of a refresher, but it is not gospel, and it's really not true to say that these things are like are written in stone or that accurate. They're not. What it's telling you is there, and you can see it here. There's some cross section in between. Biden's high crosses over with Trump's low. This is a range that each candidate could fall into. The reason why it's unlikely that Trump will beat Biden, if you were to believe this, that Biden would beat Trump in Arizona, is because Biden's high, and you can see as low as 40%. His high is only in the mid 40s. Okay, they can absolutely be the case. Their low point, their bottom is 3 points. Their high is 3.5. All right. It depends. And we can go over that. And maybe I'll show you an online calculator one day and it'll show you the math, right, on how this works. It's really not that hard. Unless you just know nothing, know nothing about it, which is fine. And that's why you're here. So we can talk about it. But Trump's range is above 50%. And it's been above 50% is top line, is ceiling. It has been in a state like Arizona now for a while. Ditto Georgia. Michigan would appear, if you were to believe it, that you could see there's the largest crossover in states like Michigan. There is now large crossover in Nevada. However, again, why does it matter? Because people don't win states with 44% of the vote, maybe in a 3-way or a 4-way or whatever it may be. But for instance, in Pennsylvania in 2020, Biden won, but he won with just over 50. It was 50.01 to Donald Trump's 48.84. Michigan also just above 50. Wisconsin, both of them were just below 50. So it's possible there. Same thing with Georgia and Arizona, by the way, both below 50. So it is possible. But in some of these cases, you can clearly see that Donald Trump's range is much, much higher. All right. In any event, I've been saying for a while now, and I really do believe this, that you should expect the polls to tighten. And Seltzer, the Grinnell College poll, what was it? Trump +6 or Trump +8, something like that. 8, I think. I don't think we're going to go into an election day with Ann Seltzer publishing Trump +8s nationally. I'm just not sure that's going to be the case. However, I did share, it may be, but we're a very, very closely divided country. And there are some voters that can come home to Biden. When we do undecideds and we lean them, in most places that we've done it so far, Biden does well when with the leaners and he catches up to Trump a little bit. The problem has been is that there are too many people who truly have changed their minds since 2020. In the New York Times poll, it was literally 10-1. It's usually about 6-1 in our polling, 8-1 maybe sometimes, but normally about 6-1. So even if Biden wins, the remaining undecided, it's not enough to catch Trump, and it's not enough to stop him from crossing the 50%. And by the way, when we sneak peek at Michigan and Pennsylvania, you're going to see that. In both states, Biden does do better with the undecideds, but he's just not doing well enough, okay? There's some really, I mean, I'm just going to be honest, there's some weird results in some of these polls. There is, for instance, where is the main I thought this was the combined. It does look like it is, but it's just something peaking when I'm looking at. Yep. All right, we're doing pretty well here so far in Pennsylvania, and I'm going to close it out today. It's just that we do give people a chance, of course. Pennsylvania's sample is a little bit bigger than Michigan's, and Michigan is a smaller state population-wise, so you expect that. But we're just under 1,300 fully completed qualified interviews. And then we're a little over 1,100. It's 1,140 in Michigan. And I probably should refresh because I haven't in a while. And it may be more than that now, but that's ballpark where we're at. It would be good enough for me to close it. These surveys, the one you're looking at here that everyone's making this big stink about, they are not. All right. If you look here, and more to the point, if you actually look in the Bloomberg Morning Consult poll, you'll see that there are I thought it was 8, but there's not. There's 7 battleground states in here, and yet it's a smaller sample than the sample minimum for the Rust Belt poll that we do in the Big 6. All right, so there are some states like Nevada, Arizona, they're not that big. So you would expect there to be a smaller sample. I don't like doing that. Even in Nevada, we could get 800, 1,000 responses. Arizona, easy. So I don't like small sample sizes. Wisconsin can be a pain sometimes, but Wisconsin's also the most volatile. And you can see this is what everybody made a big deal about. Wisconsin +1, and then Michigan had tightened, and Pennsylvania was even. Why does that matter? Because obviously Trump needs Arizona and Georgia back in most scenarios, which we'll go over. He's way ahead in Nevada in the ultimate polling, that in the aggregate polling, he's ahead in Nevada, and he's ahead in North Carolina. He's definitely Nevada. He did not carry, of course, in 2020, so that would be a flip. So would Arizona, and so would Georgia. And North Carolina looks like Trump is doing exceedingly well, and he's never polled this strong in North Carolina, and yet he's won them both. He's won it both times. North Carolina, people need to remember, polls did not get North Carolina correct for over a decade until they generally got Ted Budd right, except for a few like USA Today, or not USA Today, I'm sorry, Survey USA, that had Sherry Beasley leading. The Marist poll as well is awful. It's an awful poll, period, but it's awful in North Carolina. It's awful in states like Georgia, and it's definitely awful nationwide. The Rust Belt states, it's a bad poll, and yet they give it an A. It polls for NPR, excuse me. If you went back and looked at some of the results in North Carolina, you would have a canary. They literally had Cooper beating Forrester by like 16 or 15 points. It was crazy. Cooper did win re-election, but he only won by 4. They had Biden beating Trump by 6. Obviously, Trump won by 2. He won by almost 4 in 2016, so it was a tightening. North Carolina did move, but it moved with the country because Hillary only won the popular vote by about 2 points. Biden won it by about 4. I tweeted a video from Decision Desk yesterday. You should check it out because it was like landslide territory kind of thing. Like Biden has to win the popular vote by about 4 points, folks, for these polls to really make sense. This is a poll that is much closer than some of the other polls, but that is what he would need to do to be safe in the Electoral College. We can go over it. It's, one video. It's kind of, 10 minute video. It's definitely worth it. But there's a problem. Hold on. Keep this in mind, because this doesn't look like the CNN poll, right? And you would think, but CNN, they came out first, and Michigan was Trump plus 10 in CNN. But that was before the Bloomberg Morning Consult poll. No, it wasn't. If we go to Michigan, Trump v. Biden, which has it a tie, this is what the media is not telling you when Axios writes these reports. Rasmussen is 100% correct. Look at the field time. CNN was in the field several weeks after. So was Mitchell Research a week after. It actually started taking interviews 2 weeks before Mitchell left the field. Or I'm sorry, almost a little over a week, excuse me. That's a long time in polling, folks. That's a long time. So Rasmussen isn't telling you what's is a trick here. Biden suddenly coming back. He's not suddenly doing anything. The poll is 3 weeks old. They started collecting interviews 3 weeks ago. And they ended on the 12th. They left the field on the 12th. And it's only 698 registered voters. I know Mitchell's also a small sample size. They have Trump up by 3. It is likely, but generally speaking, Biden does better in the likely voter. He hasn't. I wonder if this continues. We're going to see when we look at Michigan and Pennsylvania ourselves. But I'll tell you, folks, I look immediately at the reported 2020 vote versus the 24 ballot. So, for instance, in the combined poll of Pennsylvania and Michigan, when we ask people, who did you vote for? Biden he's exactly at 50%, and Trump is at 46.5. Why does that matter? Well, in Pennsylvania, he was at 48.8. And in Michigan, he was at 47.9. So the poll is already slightly understating in the 2020 electorate. It's not much. But they got Biden's share of the vote. We do. We do. Pretty much spot on. And yet now, what we're seeing is generally at least a 4-point swing. So I expect these polls would close, and they are. But it likely will be pretty darn close. But Trump is leading now in an electorate that tells us he basically lost by 4 points in these states. He didn't. He lost by very, very, very narrow margins in Pennsylvania. It's 1.2%. And in Michigan, it's a little bit, obviously it's a little bit more, but it's under 3 points. So we'll see. It's possible. Trump's, by the way, collected black vote share is, again, ridiculously high. Ridiculously high for what we have seen in the past. We have never seen any Republican, but Donald Trump, we've been polling since 2016. He has never got these shares. Currently, right now, the combined in both states, and we're not talking about a small number. We spoke to over 330. It's looking like it's going to be about 350 black voters. That's not small. And yes, while there's a big chunk of undecideds, Trump does pretty well when leaned. But he's in the 20s off the jump, even before leaning. And here's the problem with Mitchell's analysis. He says, well, these races will get much closer when the voters come home to Biden, because Trump is leading with 18 to 34s, and he's taking 35% of the black vote in the Mitchell poll. He's taking 35%. Here's the problem with Mitchell's analysis. Those people aren't saying they're undecided. Not all of them. They're saying they're going to vote for Donald Trump. Never in our polling has Trump's black vote share been this high, period. They didn't go back to him. They didn't go back to Biden or back to Hillary. He never got these people to say they're voting for him. And the reason why in the Mitchell poll, Trump is up by 3 is, I'll tell you, it's because he's doing so much better in areas like Wayne County. As a matter of fact, this just got me a little bit curious. I wonder where Trump is in Wayne County in our polling. Now, it's in the raw, so he should be at about 30%. That's about where he is. And then with the decideds, oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. He's going to be doing well. I mean, in 2020, he got what, 30% in Wayne County, a little bit more, something like that. He got 30.3. It's looking like it's going to be like 35. He gets 35 in Wayne County. That's a huge number of votes that get chopped right off. And sorry, normally I'd be screaming by now, but I can't because my throat hurts. There's a lot of votes in urban areas. So these aren't people that are saying, I'm aggravated with Biden right now, so I'm picking Trump. But 6-7 months from now, I could go back to Biden. That's not what they're saying. They're saying, I hate that old, I'm voting because we heard somebody say that. I'm not voting for that old cracker. I'm not kidding. Americans are funny. Senile cracker. Sorry. Americans are hilarious. They are. So while it is going to be, I do that we should expect these polls to get closer. I think they are going to get closer. But is it a rebound? Is it a bounce back? I mean, look at the rest of the polls generally anyway. It's a whole lot of red on the board here. That morning consult, Wisconsin +1, is the first poll that Biden has led in since before the new year. Oh, my God. So, I mean, would you be jumping up and down and celebrating if you got a 1 point, swing? But it is there. People are the one right thing is that there's an apple to apples comparison. The wrong thing is saying that this is somehow now. So understand that Emerson College, if Bloomberg would have released these numbers after the State of the Union, because that's what's going on here, they got a response bias from the State of the Union, which is arguably not even real. It doesn't reflect real change in public opinion. Response bias is when Democrats got 24, maybe 48 hours of solid positive press that was just unaccounted. You just can't be. You cannot be serious with it. But they did, and they were trying to help Biden out, so they got this constant. They got this constant barrage of like positivity. What'll happen is like what happened with Mitt Romney when he went against Barack Obama, folks. Mitt Romney did not. How can I put this? He never earned any votes from that performance that he had with again in that first debate against Barack Obama. He didn't actually earn any votes. All that really happened was that Republicans were more likely to talk. They wanted to speak more to the pollster. They thought that their guy had a good event, and that's what they wanted to share it. They wanted to discuss it. But there wasn't actually any change in opinion. It was just simply due to Republicans talking more. You could see it clear as day in the Pew Research poll. If you go back and look at it, it's right in front of you. The electorate was like D+6 or something in the poll prior, and the electorate was R1 in the poll that had Mitt Romney winning. The only difference is that less Democrats wanted to speak on the phone or conduct those surveys. Bloomberg is done through a panel that Morning Consult uses. I know where they're getting it from. And I know that's why they have closer races, by the way, than some of these other people. The phone is being very, very pro-Trump, which is weird. Normally, Trump does much better in online interviews, correctly designed online samples. And they get some more of those unlikely voters that certainly will not do anything by phone. They don't want to talk by phone. We're starting to get success in getting them to participate in surveys that like will text them. You can use the link if you want. You can go back and forth, or you can use the link. I would rather them click on the link because back and forth, peer to peer, going, in a 40 question survey or even 20 can really drive up costs. So it's all right to have them, take those surveys on the link. See CNN, they're starting to do it as well. And we've noticed, especially among certain working class groups, they like that. They have no problem clicking on a link. As long as you can get them to participate, they'll do it, and they'll finish it through the it's technically a phone. You reach them by phone, but they actually completed the interview online. That's cool. But Trump, these online panels do seem to be getting a little bit closer, and that's why you see Morning Consult the way they are. But again, they were conducted during a period when it was fawning coverage for Joe Biden in a State of the Union. Had they released it then they would have come out the same day, almost a day or two before Emerson dropped their poll, which basically, so if they would have done it, give them 2 days to process it, right? Emerson released this, I think, the day after they came out of the field. You would have saw the Biden +1. There would have been 24 to 48 hours of, oh my God, Biden closed the gap before the Hill came out with their poll showing Trump up by 4. See where I'm coming from? And then we would have said, well, that's the end of that. Generally speaking, when you're looking at the rest of these polls, guys, look at this. And by the way, this should concern Biden that Trump is leading in these Marist polls. I'll tell you what, though, I don't buy them for a second. I think they're all going to change real soon. I do. I think they're all going to, I don't, maybe not soon, but come the summer or towards the end of the summer, they're not going to be able to stomach. I'm telling you, you watch. And Biden's going to have an enormous lead. So when he's running these carpet bomb ad campaigns, he's going to give them cover to do it. You watch. Anyway, and if I'm wrong, then I'll be happy to be wrong. But same day, the Morning Consult poll also showed Biden retaking the lead. The CNBC poll still showed Trump up. Now, the CNBC poll had Trump up by 4 before. So it could be, there's definitely argument to be made that Biden hasn't been leading in any polls for a while, and yet at least he's led in a few. I just will say this. I mean, you did have Ann Seltzer in the field, just a day after Civics came out with Biden +1. Right. They entered the field 2 days. Reuters was still polling Biden +2. There was a Trump +7. I'm just saying that I think if there is an outlier and it's somebody like Seltzer, you can't dismiss it. Harris's lead for Trump, I think, was consistently too big. So I think we foreshadowed a bump in Trump's lead when we came out with our Trump +6. There was a slew, including the New York Times and Seltzer, that also showed it. Let me put it this way. I would rather be in the camp with Ann and hell, even, because the New York Times has changed their methodology. They made a significant change that could account for what you're seeing and what's going on. And we'll talk about that change when we come back from the break, though, because we have to take a break. But they did it. The point of the change was so that they stopped understating Trump's vote, which they did badly twice in 2016 and in 2020. All right, let me take 30 seconds to get a drink of water. Then we'll come back with a little bit of word from our sponsor. And then we'll talk about that and other things. It's going to have to be a little bit shorter of a show today, guys, because, I'm not even supposed to be, I'm technically not supposed to be talking, but who the hell can stop me from talking? All right, I'm so glad to be doing this today because I'll tell you right now, this already has come in handy. And I did get a stroke of luck, but other than that, usually you don't, especially if you're a vet like me, you know what I'm talking about. Nice, but it's so glad. I'm so glad that we had this handy. And I'll tell you what, it blows my mind that more people aren't talking about this. On Thursday, March 21st, the court just ruled the FDA must delete every social media post addressing the use of ivermectin for treatment or prevention of COVID-19. It's been determined the FDA lied in their demonization of the drug and other effective drugs in the last 4 years, vindicating doctors like Peter McCullough, who stood strong despite every cancellation campaign. But the question that so many people are still asking is, okay, but how do I get it? Or others like hydroxychloroquine. Most doctors still won't even consider prescribing it. I've got you covered. Keep listening. Every American needs one of these at least in their homes. Americans are waking up and understanding now more than ever, we need to have these life-saving medications on hand. They aren't just remedies. They're lifelines for the next time, because there will be a next time, folks. And the wellness company's Contagion emergency kit has you covered. It's the only of its kind. Its prescription medication kit or emergency kit provides you with a carefully selected assortment of effective medications for COVID-19 and other respiratory illnesses. It's got ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, a Z-Pack, along with a nebulizer. So you can rest easy knowing that you have emergency meds on hand, along with the guidebook for safe use. This one's a little bit different than the last one. So if you got the last one, you should go and grab this one as well. Laura and I did. Backed by research and endorsed by experts like Peter McCullough and Harvey Rich. The wellness company's Contagion kit is a must-have. Avoid the chaos, wait times, and the price of a hospital, and have exactly what you need for as low as the cost of a single doctor visit. Go to, and the link is in the description, twc.health/TPP. One more time, that is twc.health/TPP, and grab your Contagion emergency kit right now. That's twc.health TPP. The code TPP will save you $30 at checkout. Kits are only available in the US. Grab them while they got them. And I'll tell you this right now. I've had this happen to me in the past. What's going on right now? Like I said, it's just something I've dealt with because I did not get them removed like a lot of kids do. If Trump did not sign 2 acts, actually, but one, if he did not push and sign the bill that gave veterans what is community care, emergency community care, then I would be up what's creek without a paddle if I did not have this kit. But I was resting easy because I knew I had it. And I was like, you know what? I'll give it a few hours. If I can't get this, at least I know I am covered. So it was nice to have peace of mind. Antibiotics. It's amazing. Have you ever read about the discovery of penicillin? I mean, it truly was one of the moments in human history that changed our story. That changed life. So think about how easy it would be to just catch an infection and die. There is, and it's really cool actually. I don't know if you guys know this, but there are they used to be really top secret guidelines and basically scenarios, they're doomsday scenarios that the US government has laid out, which is why, by the way, the fact that they ripped up the playbook that was written for pandemics is highly sus. Highly, highly sus, because they already have a pandemic playbook and they have one already for severe acute respiratory syndromes. So that was an immediate red flag to me that this was political and financial and BS. They wanted to get rid of Trump. And that's why they changed, sadly. Think about that for a second. They changed an established playbook that they spent a ton of money developing, all to make it so they could use it politically, to alter elections, to alter how elections are covered, how elections are conducted. Really, I mean, how they're prosecuted, um, all to get rid of a single guy. Anyway, in these doomsday scenarios, that which used to be super secret, there's one that had to do with, I know it's going to sound crazy, but it's true. Uh, what is essentially an There's invasions, there's pandemics. I mean, like alien invasions. I'm not joking. Anyway, years ago, when some of this stuff got out, and Laura would know the guy's name, he helped the government work on Travis. Travis. He's a physicist, brilliant guy. Anyway, because he's like this big TV dude, he was able many years ago to get, I think it was the History Channel, to do a docu-series enacted and everything based on some of these scenarios with information that they're allowed to share. And in one of them, it showed you the story of a suburban family and a father, his kids, his wife. I mean, the troubles you would not think people would have. He could not get one of his children to eat because of how radically our diet would change. So it's like, you eat or you die, son. There's no choice. Like, you would refuse to eat this rattlesnake. Anyway, in this scenario, as humans are rebuilding finally and they get their foot on the ground, after everything he's been through, and he was serving at this little communal thing as what is essentially a doctor, even though he wasn't. I think it was an EMT or something. He gets a friggin' cut on his thumb. A cut. That's it. And yep, a cut. You believe that? Isn't this funny now with StreamYard? Isn't that funny? Sometimes I just totally forget. See if I can get it to that one. I'm trying to get the exclamation mark. In any event, he gets his cut and he knows he's done for. After everything he's been through, he dies of a friggin' bacterial infection because he could no longer find antibiotics. The world had, in the very beginning, they looted all these like there wasn't a Walgreens left standing, folks. And you think about it too. So many of us, what would like so many people go for? Like, smart people would go for the antibiotics, the antivirals, the cholera medications, right? Malaria. So you would go for the hydroxychloroquine. You would go for the amoxicillin. You would go for the zithromycin. You would go for the ivermectin if you're smart. And instead, most people would go for the painkillers, the pain pills, the opiates. And they do. It's really cool. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. But that's how important these kits are. So just really, really, really important stuff. All right. So let me tell you what the New York Times did, which I think is a big deal. It's a big deal. And there are two schools of thought about how to deal with these, because what the New York Times basically found is when they went back and looked at those who dropped off from the interviews, they were super, super Trumpy. I don't know if I can do it without screwing up the poll going now, but I can show you transcribed some of them. I show people all the time. Sean Parnell, I've showed a bunch of these too. I've explained this to Charlie Kirk and then showed Charlie, like, look at what happens here. What was going on is that the people they don't want to complete the interview, and that's fine if they're generally representative of the public at large, people who are dropping at higher rates. But they don't. They don't represent the public at large or the voting electorate at large. Democrats don't drop. Liberals don't drop. They are dying to tell you how much smarter they are than everybody else. And they're dying to click on the orange man bad buttons. Okay. This is what they want to do. It's been like this for a long, long time since I've been in the polling industry. It wasn't always, but it has been in a while it has been. So for instance, if I go back and look at a county like Macomb, and I look at how many people dropped from the calls in the county of Macomb, and since we front load the presidential race, okay, yesterday, because Macomb was one of those counties we're obviously targeting quite a bit. Yesterday, not about 11 people in the county of Macomb decided not to finish the survey after getting through a certain portion up to the demographics, and they dropped. Out of those 11 people, only one voted outright in the survey for Joe Biden. One. Another two were for Kennedy, and the third parties were undecided and then leaned to Trump if there was no third party. And I think someone went for West or something it was split. Went for Kennedy when there was Kennedy and a generic someone else, and then went for West in the full ballot. The rest were all for Donald Trump, all of them. When you're doing things like live caller and they don't take the survey at all, and they just are like, hey, yeah, I'm voting for Trump, I don't really want to take the interview, but you can mark down I'm voting for Trump. All right, have a nice day. That almost never happens for Biden. Almost never. It's like 10-1. When you're texting people, they'll text back, look, I'm voting for Trump, but I don't want to complete that. It takes too long. I don't have the time. That is common. So when the New York Times looked back and looked at their dropped interviews, it's what they saw. They saw that Donald Trump was underrepresented because people who chose him did not complete their surveys. They didn't stay for the full live caller interview. And they wrote an op-ed about it and everything. This is why the New York Times poll that's out Sunday or something like that, which was the last poll they did, this is why we've changed our methodology, and they will include people who drop from the call. I only got a few more minutes here, but this is there's an update I want to show you that nobody's talking about, of course, because it's too anti-Biden. But anyway, I'm going to show it to you. Let me just wrap up this thought. The bottom line is there's two schools of thought. I'm okay with one of them. There it is. There's two schools of thought. I'm all right with one of them as long as you have certainty about that person who was conducting that interview and you know every answer to the remaining questions. And in our case, this is why we do demographics on the back end, because people drop at the beginning if you front load demographics and then you don't know who they are. There are some interviews that can be salvaged if, for instance, you know their annual income and they didn't do that question, or you know their education level and they didn't answer that. It's hard though, because we don't know so much. We only know so much about everybody. I wish there was 100% certainty about everyone, but you probably would not want to live in that world, all right, where pollsters and other big data people know everything about you. So we're limited. The reason why people don't or think that's dangerous is that there are those people who will, of course, still salvage the interviews even if they don't know all that. And here's the problem. That limits how you could wait. If you don't know their education and you're keeping those interviews, well, guess what? You can't wait for education. If you don't know stupid stuff, I will salvage an interview if I know all of that information and the person probably dropped at like regional demographics, which we all know about. I know where the voter is. and know where the voter lives. So I know whether it's a suburban or an urban area. I know what county it's in, right? I know what congressional district it's in. I know what precinct it's in, that kind of stuff. And especially if you're going to wait very granular like that, then that's fine. As long as that person conducted all the other or finished all of the other questions during that time they conducted the interview. I can't tell. I don't know the answer to whether or not the New York Times was basically filling in the blanks and didn't know, but they're trying to compensate for the fact they know they blew presidential elections in the past. They can take their victory laps with some of the midterm polling that they did, but they know what I know, which is a presidential race is a different animal. It's a very different animal. And if they got their formula down for the midterms, which they don't with everything, but they did better in 22 than they even did in 18. If they got that formula down and it's working for them, that's good, but it does not ensure that that it's going to work for the presidential election. In fact, it's not going to work. I know people who only poll live caller for midterms. Why? Because panel polling and having online sampling and other modes can cast too big of a net. And people are notorious for telling you they're going to vote and they don't. So it's just a different animal, a different one altogether. So they're making this change in the hope that they don't have another Biden +6 in Florida, another Biden +6 in North Carolina. Of course, Biden lost both of those states. They had a Biden +1 in Ohio. And I think it was either tied or +1 in Iowa. I mean, God, it was awful. I think it was 9 points in Wisconsin, 11 points in Pennsylvania, 9 or 11, and like 11 or 12 in Michigan. Just crazy, insane leads. And they were very close elections because those people just don't want to talk. And we still see that now, by the way. So let me do this update while we have a couple minutes. Ba-da-bum. Where are you? Did I go through too much of it? No, come on. That's 2020. Where are you? Hold on. Let me pull this up here, guys, because there it is. Nobody's been following along because the election was over. And I guess people just decided that it wasn't worth talking about anymore. I don't know. Let's just move on. We know what the result was. However, we didn't look at the remaining votes that were counted. And it's really important. Let me just refresh to make sure that didn't do a little bit of a freeze. It is a little bit misleading how many Democratic votes are remaining. All right. Because we don't think there are that many. All right. So this is Arizona. And before we get to the Republicans, let's look at Biden here. Rich, why does this matter? Arizona's over. It matters. Bear with me. All right. Arizona counts votes like so. In order, anyway. The mail-in vote that is collected throughout early voting in February until the actual election on the 19th, which I believe this one was the 19th, correct? Yes. That was all counted first. This is why people who are like, we'll get to the Republican contest in a second, but this is why people are like, oh, it's so dumb. Trump did so bad. He's losing, 28% of the vote. So people just don't know how votes are counted. But in any event, most of those votes are cast before or during Super Tuesday. It picks up as time goes on, for sure. But the majority of the ballots were cast before it became a clenched race. And that's true for Joe Biden, too, by the way. However, Biden did the best in the vote that was the earlier vote that was cast ahead of time, on or before Super Tuesday. Those were his best margins, and he got in the 90s statewide. All right, about 91%, something like that. The vote that came in and trickled in as late arriving, he's doing very poorly with. That's he's only getting 79%, 80%. That matches more closely the election day margin, which he's doing very poorly in as well. Because again, the difference between the Democratic race and the Republican race is significant. One is a sitting president. Go back and look at how many or what percent of the vote Donald Trump was getting as a sitting president in 2020 in these primaries to be renominated. 90 and above. 90 and above. There was no funded opposition. Even, what's his name? The governor of, he's so irrelevant, I don't care. The governor of Massachusetts, for crying out loud, had more money than Marianne Williamson. Matt Walsh was supported by certain local people in New Hampshire, right? There was still opposition in 2020, and yet Trump got historically high shares of the vote for an incumbent sitting president. I'm looking at Apache, which is basically all in, and Joe Biden is sitting at only 78% of the vote. This is a Democratic county. He got 3,886 votes. This is Navajo Nation land, all right? This used to be, and then obviously Navajo's next, and he's got less than his statewide margin there as well. Just if you round, it gets to 80%. But as you could see, significantly poorer than the statewide margin. There's definitely weakness in non-white areas in Arizona for Joe Biden. It's a big deal. In Maricopa, his election day vote was abysmal. And he did the worst in the most, or I would say the least white precincts of Phoenix and to the east of Phoenix. He did the best among like rich white people. I mean, that's just the truth. And rich white people who voted early because that's how they vote most of the time. But Biden's share in Maricopa, 89.6%, is still, about statewide. As, anyway, that early vote comes first, then on election day or night, right? They'll count most of the election day votes, most of them. There's always some that trickle in later, but most of them will be. And then throughout the usually 4 or 5 days, it's kind of ridiculous. They still have vote. And throughout those 4 or 5 days, then they'll do the signature verification process and count the votes that were there's a few batches. One, they were walked in. They are a mail-in vote, but they were walked into a polling place on election day and handed to officials, right? They go in a total separate bin to be processed later. And they're not as election day Trumpy, but they're usually more Trumpy than the early vote, more Republican than the early vote, but not as Republican or as Trumpy as the election day vote. Somewhere in the middle, usually. All right. Biden is doing the worst with early votes in that batch of vote. Trump, on the other hand, is doing the best. There was one batch of election day vote in Flagstaff, which is in Coconino, which is very liberal, where he did not do well. And by not well, I mean he got 78% or something like that. It was ballpark 78%. That was bad. Nikki Haley got 20. No, he must have gotten less because I thought she got 26%. Maybe I'm wrong, and she got 20. But that was an election day vote. The ballots that were brought in later, and there weren't many, but there were several hundred that came in that people dropped off at an election day location. And they said, look, it's a mail-in vote, but here I'm handing it to you. Trump did much better with those. And there's still some votes out there, but they're basically all reported in, all right? In Apache, he did remarkably well. And you can see he's doing better than his statewide margin. He did very well. He's got he's got 2,748 votes compared to Biden's 3,886. So obviously Biden's going to carry Apache, but there's clearly a weakening of support in these Navajo areas. All right. And by the way, Native American areas of Apache is where Biden did the worst. And I don't know why there's more. People all we talk about is polls, and I love polling. Obviously, it's my life. It's my lifestyle. It's my, it's my living. But these are votes, and it's worth. And I know it's a primary electorate. It's the most intense electorate, the most resistance an electorate it's going to be. So it's important to see that Trump does better in these areas where Biden is in fact showing weakness. In Maricopa, of course, he's still getting 77% of the vote. There's still votes out there. There was one batch where Trump won 91 or 93%. And then there was another batch of like 16,000 votes where he only won 80. And I'm saying only, but it was weaker than you would think. And that, of course, guess where? Came from like the ASU area and some of the Mormon areas, they're just not as keen on Trump. But again, that's later vote, so that was like a middle finger to Donald Trump. It was. Now, it wasn't huge. It wasn't a lot of votes, but you have to note that that's where that happened. The best areas for Donald Trump in Maricopa County were Hispanic areas where he was literally winning every single vote. Nobody, except for me, is talking about this. We now have, because we've seen some Black Belt County voting in the primaries where I'm looking at these votes and I'm telling you guys, there aren't enough white people in those counties in a primary. And because Biden is doing worse in those counties, those have to be non-white votes for Donald Trump. It's not a lot, but it's there. We saw it in Michigan, too. We saw it in some other Midwest states. And now we're seeing it very, very clearly in Arizona. It's just one of those states, like with Florida, Miami-Dade, there aren't enough white people to cause that kind of a margin and that number of votes. Those are Hispanic voters. The most non-white areas are voting at the heaviest rate for Trump. In fact, in some areas of Miami-Dade that are heavily Hispanic, he won more of the vote than he did in working class areas of Pinellas. White working class. Ditto, same thing happened with Santa Cruz. All right, many Republican votes there, of course, and especially not in a primary, but in the most less, or I would say the least white areas, he did the best. By the way, even in the late arriving mail-in ballots, there weren't many of them, but those who voted by mail, technically, but walked it into the precinct, he won universally. La Paz, same thing, by the way. Yuma, he did better in, but there were some of these vote shares that nobody was talking about that he literally won every vote. When we went into early voting, when we got finished with early voting, let me put it this way. Nikki Haley had 103,000 votes. Almost every single vote that was counted after that, she got like 7,000 more votes, guys. That's it. And if you were to take half of it, let's say there's such a repudiation among this wing that 50% or 56,000, let's call it 50.8%. 56,000 voters who voted for Nikki Haley were to vote for Joe Biden. Joe Biden would still trail by nearly 65,000 votes. This has expanded since this vote that nobody's been paying attention to came in. Why does this matter? You know how freaking Arizona reports. It is now clear to me, and I'm just going to say this as we crush it on out of here. It is now clear to me that Donald Trump can win Arizona without winning Maricopa County, which did happen in 22. I just didn't really, and you don't want to have to go there. But he wins Maricopa at all, and you're looking at a 4 or more, like 3 to 4 point win. If he wins it barely by the skin of his teeth, he wins it by a few points, he can win the state by 6 points. I don't believe anyone's going to win Arizona by 6 points like some of the polls suggest, but hell do I know? Maybe. Maybe he does better in Apache than most Republicans do because they just don't like Joe Biden. Maybe he hits 44% of the vote in Pima. Maybe. He hits 42. He's golden. Golden. But he could lose Maricopa County and win the state. He can, because the margins are just so big, bigger than other Republicans are used to getting. And that's really, the state's changing. It's something. It's really something. All right. So with that in mind, I'm gonna give welcome to all the new people, by the way, on Locals and on YouTube who signed up. Locals for supporter, YouTube as members. Welcome to you guys. Normally we would give you a much longer show, and there's a ton of things I want to talk about, but I do have to give it a rest, or else I'm not gonna heal. We'll have some peeks into the Wisconsin, and you know what? Let's just do this. I want to give raw too much raw here. But yeah, it looks like I'm going to go ahead and close it down. I'll show you what we're working with right now. And I don't want to get too much into results because people get confused. There was some confusion on Locals about, well, how is this bad for Biden? He's winning leaners. And you guys weren't, looking at almost the exact, at that time anyway, it was Pennsylvania. We were several hundred interviews in. And the 2020 vote share was almost identical to what it was in 2020. It was like 50 to 48, almost identical. It was a little bit more pro-Biden. Yeah, Biden was trailing by 4 in now. So what it tells you is there was like a 6-point swing in Pennsylvania. Now, it's probably going to close a little bit at some point here, but you can see that I think we're about it. That's all that looks like, right? Yeah, it's Michigan and Pennsylvania. I'm going to give some people some time to finish up and wrap up their interviews, because you are told, remember I told you about the texting, right? If they do click on that link, they are told they have 24 hours to complete it. We have not sent new invitations because we don't want that 24-hour thing to start. So we do know and can see that there are people who are actively clicking and then hitting save and coming back. So we want to give them a little bit of time. But Pennsylvania is about 53% of the overall sample. Michigan's about 47% of the overall sample. Pennsylvania's bigger. In 2020, Michigan cast about 5.5 million votes. In Pennsylvania cast about just under 7 million. It was about 6.9. So it is a bigger state, and by the way, Wisconsin was under 3.3. So it's a smaller state even still. Minnesota being even about the same. Minnesota cast like 20,000 votes less than Wisconsin did. Oh, by the way, in case nobody's noticed, Biden is defending Minnesota. So don't tell me my polling's wrong. He would not be hiring 3 very serious political operatives and funding their little operation to the hilt. I don't know if you saw that report too. He is defending Minnesota, which means they know they're on the cusp of losing Minnesota. They would not jump in there if they didn't. Check out the Decision Desk video that I was telling you about. It's on my Twitter feed. I quote tweeted it and said it was a cool thought exercise, and it is. It shows you what it means when you're looking at these polls and Real Clear Politics, and people are like, it's a Biden comeback because it's a tie now nationally, or Biden's got a 1-point win. Biden needs a 4-point national margin to make sure that he secures the Electoral College. All right? He needs 4 points. And even a Trump plus 2 is very close, honestly, too. I mean, that's the thing about it's another thing you'll see when you watch it. Very interesting. Like, Trump would need to win by like 4 or 6 points for there to be some real surprises. technically under that model. And it is just a thought exercise, but it does show you how significant Biden's task is here. It's not just the swing, or it's not just the census being done in 2020 and then changing the math. It's the swing. You know, how a modest swing toward the Republican candidate can cause some serious damage to Democrat coalition in the Electoral College. All right. So check it out. But they come to the number we've roughly come to, that the floor at the moment, the most likely floor for Donald Trump is 312. You would need Biden to make a significant comeback to drop Trump below the 300s. And it definitely can happen. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that it's very, we're not there yet. So as far as like, is Biden bouncing back? Is Biden got just to end the show with what we started it on? Is Biden bouncing back? The answer is, even if it's true and selectively cherry picking those polls that people want to look at, even if that were true, it still wouldn't be enough for him to win. He would still lose. All right. That's that. Because I mean, it's not just he can't. You're not gonna lose Georgia, Nevada, and Arizona, and then not see damage in the rest of the country. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And by the way, Trump does do better with Hispanics in Michigan. It's weird. And he did in 2020 too. Got to do a little bit more research on the Hispanics in Pennsylvania and see what the deal is. What's the dealio? Anyway, don't forget to vote for Winston. Oh my God. How could I forget? Winston is, I don't know if he's still in the semifinals or he's now just straight in the finals. Let me get you the link. You'll see, though, you'll have no choice but to, if he's not in the finals yet and it's still the semifinals, then you have to vote for another matchup. Here it is on, here I'm going to write vote Winston. They want the email. You don't technically have to give it. And even if you do, I know who's got the emails. They're not going to bother you with BS. All right. It is for, for charity. Rumble. Don't forget. Here we go. Vote for Winston. Vote for Winston. I didn't do, what am I forgetting? Yeah. I didn't do, and yes, I did TDP 360. I did, and then cashed out. And right, Dweej, if they're defending Minnesota, which has a significantly higher number of left-wing Scandinavians, Finnish, and Swedes, then Wisconsin is gone because they have Norwegians. I mean, they have Scandinavians as well. They're just more right-wing Scandinavians, like Norwegians. They have Finns and Swedes up in the north. That's why I tell you all the time, Douglas, Bayfield, right? The northwestern part, lumberjack country, those are got more left-wing Scandinavian voting groups. And then Wisconsin has less of a non-white liberal population. And also their white population just isn't as big, like those suburbs outside of Milwaukee. Trump wins those suburbs. Even though Biden is a suburb killer, he lost the WOW suburbs to Donald Trump. However, he's got Minnesota. He's got outside of Ramsey and Hennepin. Well, outside of Hennepin, he's got Ramsey, and the Twin Lakes suburbs are much more liberal. Trump needs to get like 46% of the vote there. So, yep. I didn't I didn't do Wisconsin this time. We'll do it soon. But what else am I? I feel like I'm missing something. Right. Winston. Don't forget. Winston. And I'll give people a chance to do this poll, finish this poll, then we'll wrap it up. And we will we'll get it processed and out and we'll talk about it. Let's see. What I forget. I feel like I'm totally forgetting something. Thanks, of course, to our sponsors over at the Wellness Company. We love those guys. Don't forget, Check it out. The link is below in the description. Okay, but I'll give it to you one more time. It's twc.health/TPP. twc.health/TPP. And there's a perfect example. Wait times for dogs are ridiculous. Something like what happened with me, you need an antibiotic immediately or you're in a lot of trouble. And so, love them. So glad that they are supporting us. We are supporting them, and the world goes around like that. All right, so that's it. See you on Friday, of course, but keep your eyes to the social media so you can see what's going on when we drop the poll. All right, none but love for you. Deuces as always, and we'll see you soon on Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Deuces from Laura. Deuces from Laura.